Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, the Council of Europe wagging its finger at France for this Wednesday for not upping its game when it comes to banning corporal punishment. Public opinion in this country, as in Britain, squarely on the side of a government that has said it's not going to reinforce the law, at least not for now. With us from Strasbourg, Regina Jensdottir, head of children's rights at the Council of Europe. We're joined here in the studio by Alexandra Code, Secretary General of Families of France. Mother of 5, you were telling us.
Yes. Well, because I love children.
What ages?
Ranging from 9 to 18.
9 to 18, okay. Attorney Tony Kennebrew, father of 2, but also
yes.
of president of the Children's Rights Association, ADEPE, and Michel Pierre Paoli, teaching supervisor at education supervisor at a Paris private school in the suburbs of the French capital. Welcome back to all of you. By the way, the Pope last month weighing in on the argument, qualifying his support for, how should we put it, the old school methods.
One time, I heard a father in a meeting with married couples say, "I sometimes have to smack my children a bit, but never in the face so as not to humiliate them." How beautiful. He knows the sense of dignity. He has to punish them, but does it justly and moves on.
Regina Jensdottir, your reaction?
I think that every adult needs to respect the full dignity of a child. And I think that any form of violence, as minor as it can be, is hurting the dignity and the well-being of the child. These are the messages that the Council of Europe has been conveying for many years now, and we've made progress. I think that we really need to understand that as you would not hit your grandmother or your mother or your partner, you do not hit a child. Human rights do not stop at the front door of your home.
Michel Pierre Paoli.
And I think that when you are educating children with violence, they understand and believe that violence is a tool which is efficient in order to get your point across. And I think that's really regrettable.
But this is where the argument begins, isn't it? Because the Pope doesn't seem to think that it's violence in this particular instance, the way he described it.
No, he doesn't think so, but I believe that any form of violence against a child is not respecting its integrity and well-being and its rights.
Michel Pierre Paoli?
I like the point of any kind of violence, because actually violence is not physical violence only. I mean, sometimes you have some parents or some people that will never beat, never physically their children, but will have a kind of violence very rude against them and make a lot of bad things with them, you know. You can have some people that have very good education with their children, but sometimes have a little smacking or something like this that will not have really bad effect, you know. I think the question is the question of violence, and the question of violence is not just physical violence. In France, maybe we have a kind of education that is not so non-violent education. I mean, physically there is no more so physically violence, I mean, against the children. But I mean that we are kind of old-fashioned in our way of education. I mean, and the debate is on that point.
Right. The European law includes physical violence and also psychological violence. And it's very important. It's extremely important. Psychological violence is just as harmful as physical violence. And what we see on the streets is basically a tip of the iceberg. It means it's something else, something deeper is happening inside these homes. And it's important.
But some parents say, and this has been the debate this week, that they give a slap to their kids because for them it's the nuclear option, that it's in the toolbox in case you need it.
It's illegal. It's completely illegal. And I think that the parents should first start off by showing the children that they respect the law. And respecting the law also means respecting the integrity and the dignity of these children. Children are not things that you can just slap and hit and spank and pet and pull and burn and throw hot water on and all this other stuff.
Right. Hang on. There's a wide spectrum between pouring hot water on your kid.
Well, many parents do that
and
also.
giving a slap on the wrist.
Parents do all sorts of things. This is why children are taken away from these parents.
Right. But
this is why they're put in foster homes.
Well, that's why I think it's a high time that we did some kind of summary of what has happened in the countries that has enforced a law to stop any kind of violence to the children. And the results are dreadful. When you look at the Swedish society, one thing that, after all, they were among the very first to legislate, and Regina told us so, which is right. What is going on at the moment? Police department, the government itself is stating that violence is booming in schools and in the whole society. So that's the youth in the youth. That's the youth that has not been spanked. I'm not saying that I'm. What I'm saying is that it's high time we had some kind of check of what has happened in those countries that are examples for us. Another example, Portugal. Portugal has enforced the law in 2007. Right, so we should see a great improvement. What's going on in the Portuguese society? 10 to 15 times higher the average of violence to the children. So
you think that a way to reduce this violence is by parents being able to slap their children?
So what I'm saying is that it's quite obvious. Enforcing a law is not the solution. We all said that we were against violence to the children. We all agreed on that. I mean, this is not the perfect behavior. One wouldn't like to do it, and that's no discussion. The thing is that enforcing a law makes things not going better, and if not better, probably even worse. That's what happened in the Swedish society.
What is important is
we have other examples. You have Hungary. You want to go in Hungary? Same. 2005, they enforced the law. The situation is that they have.
So you're basically saying that all the violence in most of these countries is due to the fact that the parents cannot hit their children.
We are as
I'm sorry, I can't buy that.
All right. Okay, but by the fact that the numbers are there to say that we have as many
things. Their families, their parents, their churches.
Let me put it to Regina Jensdottir. Has legislation made these societies less violent?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I couldn't
Has
hear you.
legislation in places like Sweden made the society less violent?
Yes, I believe that it does have an impact. When you teach children that violence is acceptable, they understand that it is acceptable. But I think we need to understand, for example, in Sweden, there was opposition to the introduction of the legal ban at the time. And today, when you ask the Swedish population, there is about 6% of the population which still considers corporal punishment to be acceptable. So I think that the legal ban is necessary to make people understand that violence in any form, psychological or physical, is not tolerated. And then you need to work with the parents and you need to work with the society in order for them to be able to accompany this change with real change, positive parenting measures, counseling, support. And there's ample opportunities in order to be able to support parents and the societies in understanding that corporal punishment, smacking and hitting is intolerable. And the legal ban has definitely had an impact in the countries where it has been introduced.
Michel Pierpoli?
I think to have a law, it's important, okay? But the law can't be only the solution. If you don't support the parent, as she said, actually, you don't give them the solution or the tools to have the education, the proper education. If they have nothing to replace the kind of violence they use to have the last word, I want to say, on their children, what they will use, actually.
All right. Again, a recent poll showed 87%. Sorry, go ahead, Regina Jensdottir.
No, but that is exactly what I want to repeat what the previous speaker has just said, is that when the Council of Europe promotes the legal ban, in parallel to that, we also promote a recommendation, which are guidelines for governments on how they can support the parents with positive parenting methods in order to help the parents accompany this change. It's crucial.
Regina, in the UK, current rules make it illegal for parents to smack a child if it leaves a bruise, but permit a lighter smack or, quote, reasonable chastisement. What is your reaction to that?
Well, how are you going to define reasonable chastisement? For me, it doesn't make any sense. I think, where does it stop? Where does it begin? When you have to ban. You have to introduce a ban. The legislation needs to protect the child in the same way as it protects an adult.
Alexandra Code, it is difficult, isn't it, to decide what is where the boundary is?
The cursor is extremely difficult. We see it in the hospital all the time, in children's hospital, and it's in France there have been enforcement of legal solutions. You have a number that one has to dial in case there is a suspicion of bad treatment to the kid, which is 119, and this is something kind of solutions that France has already put to protect the children. And indeed, we speak of the UK. You just spoke. How do you assess was it 1,400 children raped in Rotterdam without? They had no bruises, that's for sure. How do you assess the psychological effect of the destruction of their own life?
For sure, but let's bring it back to the question of purely corporal punishment. For you, a smack, is it? Because some people say a smack is basically a show of helplessness on the part of the parent who's not getting through. Is it a show of helplessness, or is it something for you that is well calculated and is an educational tool?
What I think, my conviction is that every sort of behavior, provided it's in a range of acceptability, has to be defined in the context. As I said, you would probably have put me in jail because I stopped my children twice in a very abrupt way.
Not for saving your children.
But you couldn't know what was going on at the moment it happened. And that happened another time for me in the park. Because not what I said. Having 5 children, I had a number of experiences.
No, but I have 2. But that has
one escaped from my home. Mm-hmm. It was very important.
One of your child escaped. Well, it doesn't surprise me if. Well,
what?
No.
What are you saying? Are you insulting me? Are you telling me that I'm not treating well my children?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
This is not correct what you just said. If you are American, I'm surprised that you react that way.
Please. What I'm trying to tell you is that what you just said has nothing to do with what I said. What I said was that...
That's very surprising.
No. What I said was that protecting your child from being hit by a car, I can understand that. But slapping a child in public, I cannot accept that. When you see a child being pushed off
that comes back to the fact that if it's not in public, then it's acceptable. Well, I disagree with that.
No. Hold up. If a car is going to run over your child, and you're going to eject your child away. That's something that you have the right to do. You have to do that. That would be a non-assistance of person in danger. Okay.
Well,
however,
that's
we're not talking
exactly what I'm
we're not talking about the non-assistance of person in danger. By us not.
That's the difficulty. By us
not making this law. Law is the beginning. Law is the beginning.
In a hospital, we even have a trouble to assess the suffering of people. How can a law be help?
The law is important.
And the proof are there again. Regina was saying, I believe in the Swedish society things are going better. Well, she shouldn't be believing. She should be looking at facts. And facts are here, and they are coming from the Swedish government, who admitted that trends were not, that there was no diminishment of the violence at school and at camp in the 20 past years. This is a tremendous result. Another one, psychological problems are increasing among the young people, with a violence that has increased by over 50% since 1994. Suicide of young women is the highest. It goes as high as in the 70s. are we talking of a peaceful society where everything is just fine?
No, but that's the start, and the law is very important. If you do not have laws,
that's a start that has been
if you do not have the laws,
1979.
this will continue. So I'm grateful that there are laws. I'm grateful that there are international laws, there are international conventions preventing parents and school teachers and adults from violating the dignity and the integrity, the psychological and the physical integrity of these children. It's very important. The laws are important. Now, parents need to be educated. Teachers need to be educated. Parents need to be educated to the rights of their children, because children have rights also. In our association, we deal a lot with this. Parents not understanding that children are human beings also. Children also have the rights to be respected.
And who is going to educate the parents?
Well, we have societies, we have associations, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have all sorts of people, professionals who are doing this. But what's important, you're saying that we don't need the law. The law is very important. Just go ahead.
Let me bring in Regina Jensdottir on this. Who is going to educate the parents?
I think there's a very solid basis of child protection authorities in France which can support, and as the previous speaker said, there are associations. There's also general public awareness which can be used. But I'm putting myself in the situation of a French parent listening to this debate, and I think we also need to, or I would like to convey the message that I believe that parents in general, including French parents, and not only parents in Paris, but French parents in general, they strive to be good parents, good mothers and good fathers. So I think that is something which we need to understand as well. And I think that it is important for us to help this change and to accompany this change by
what you said is very important, because a lot of these parents hit their children thinking that they're good parents. They think that this is what being a good parent is. Let me smack my child in public. Let me throw my child against the door. Let me throw my child down. Parents need to be educated on what exactly is a good parent and what is not a good parent. And I'm sure that you're a very good parent. I do not put it doubt. No, I do not put it at all in doubt the fact that you're a good parent, and it's very important. However, the parents that I see on the streets who really violate their children. Yes.
Let's hear from a sample. Again, a recent poll showing 87% of parents approve of corporal punishment in this country. Similar numbers in Britain, by the way. But what does corporal punishment mean?
It's pointless, actually. Obviously, you have to show authority and not let your kids do whatever they want. But smacking or slapping just makes things worse, while upsetting the child and the parent more.
I think it's less for the child's benefit and more a way for parents to let it all out.
I was scared of my parents. I was afraid of being hit. There was even a whip at home. But now with our children, it would be impossible to raise a hand against them.
Now it would be impossible to raise a hand against them. Michel Pierre-Paoli.
And I'm very happy of that, really. But before maybe...
And there has been no law. And she says it's already impossible.
Yes, it's already impossible, of course, unfortunately. But before you had a kind of education that was the submission of young people, and that young people were afraid of their parents, okay? This kind of education, fortunately, is not acceptable today, and I'm happy of that. But we didn't really think about what kind of education now, if we don't make a kind of education where the children afraid of you, or if you don't beat your children. What kind of education? Is it actually difficult for the parent? I meet a lot of parents every day, okay? And that parents, there is any parents that he's a bad parent, you know, or that have no matter of their children. It doesn't exist.
So what you're saying is that the days when you used to beat your children into submission are over.
It's
but
over.
But we haven't really replaced it with anything else.
It's exactly what I think.
Do you agree with that, Alexandre Lacon?
Well, it's quite obvious, and the thing is that I'm just saying that law is not going to compensate for any lack of responsibility, and that's my
If there is just a law, it's not enough, actually.
It's the responsibility.
If there is, like the speakers say, a kind of guidelines or things like this for the parents, that it can be interesting.
You know, I have to disagree with you, because for me, law is bringing a negative part.
No. Law is not necessarily negative. Okay, if you read Kant,
law is regulating our society, which is good.
And it's very important. And the law has existed for years. Okay, this isn't something new. There are European laws that France should be respecting. The problem is that France is not respecting that law. And this law should be enforced. And I believe that this should be enforced even harder, not just, well, we'll let...
In this debate, I don't understand why people don't go to the countries where there have been laws enforced and to see the results. In science, that's all what we do.
Before coming here, I read a lot. Before coming here, I read a lot about that.
At the results.
And the results that I've seen is that parents today believe that... before coming here, I read a lot about that. And the results that I see...
I did too.
The results...
And that's the numbers that I was bringing up from
the results that I see... The results that I read was that today, more and more parents believe that punishing child, corporal punishment, is not acceptable. And I think that's good. And that's because of the law. If there was no law, we would see more and more parents thinking that corporal punishment is acceptable.
Well, you just saw by the interview of France
and this is exactly which...
that there has been no law, and people already think that. There has been no law, and people already know that.
There has always been a law. And France has not been respecting this law. And this is one of the reasons why France is being pointed the finger at this week. And this is one of the reasons why we're having this debate. France has to respect the law. This means that the citizens of France, like the citizens of all the other European countries, have to respect the dignity, and the psychological and the physical integrity of all the children in Europe.
We respect the law, and the law has been enforced in 2007.
All right, we're going to end it there, unfortunately, because there's much more to say. I want to thank you, Tony Kennebrew. I want to thank as well Alexandra Code and Michel Pierre-Paoli, as well as Regina Jensdottir, for joining us from Strasbourg. Stay with us, though, because our Media Watch segment is next. It's been an impassioned discussion here, and it's an impassioned discussion. James Creedon, hello, sir.
Hello, Francois.
It's been going on, and like I was saying at the outset, radio call-in shows in this country. Right. Since the beginning of the week, they've been flooded with people weighing in on this issue.
Right, I think everyone seems to have an opinion on this one, Francois, and indeed news websites are getting just as much, I suppose, comment from the public. Banning smacking is giving power to children. That is the opinion of one internet user speaking to Les 20 Minutes magazine. Luc Chatal, former education minister, he is not in favour of corporal punishment, but he compares smacking to nuclear dissuasion.
Nuclear option.
Exactly. So I think what he means by that is you need to keep it on the table, but you never use it. It needs to kind of not be completely outright banned. So the nuclear button, I suppose. And as you can see here, cartoonists as well pointing out that everyone has an opinion on it. Some maybe who want to enforce a bit of smacking might be more in favour than those on the receiving end of said smack. Exactly. Eric Zemmour is being caricatured here as well by some cartoonists, of course, the controversial right-wing commentator. Today, you can not smack children. What will it be next? Women? So that's a bit unfair, perhaps, on him. But I think what it's pointing to is the fact that people who see themselves as being more progressive say, look, you know, you wouldn't smack a colleague, you wouldn't smack a woman, why should you be able to smack a child? But anyway, it's still open to debate. There seems to be a lot of confusion as well about who is behind this rapping of France on the knuckles. It's the Council of Europe, it's not the European Union. So a lot of people saying, hold on a minute, shouldn't Europe have other priorities? What about the Troika going into Greece and taking 3 million Greeks out of the health system with deaths incurring as a result of that? Isn't that worse than smacking? So a lot of people seeming to think, Francois, that Europe should have bigger fish to fry or more important issues to deal with than disciplining children. That is an expression, an opinion that's coming across on social media. Some people, I think, a little bit inappropriately, Francois, mentioning 50 Shades of Grey, saying, should we be talking about smacking while it's still in the cinemas? It's completely irrelevant. Different topic. I think we can all agree on that. Spanking a child is most often done by adults who were abused as a child and always by an adult who is emotionally out of control. So that's one very clear comment saying that parents shouldn't do it, and if they do it, they've got the problem. Then a lot of, I suppose, as we were saying earlier, Francois, this isn't a problem just in France, or this isn't a case of just France being under the spotlight. Other countries in Europe are also under the spotlight, and Sweden is often being held up as the example. It was the first country in Europe to fully outright ban smacking in 1979.
We failed to reach consensus on the matter here.
Indeed, and the idea of smacking here, it's taboo in Sweden. And indeed, there was a discussion earlier in the newsroom where a couple of generations back here in France, one of our editors was saying that children were put over the teacher's knee with their pants pulled down and humiliated, smacked in front of the class. No one would dream of allowing that now. So maybe it is a question of just moving forward, where just smacking is as taboo as that in Sweden now, where some say it's turned into a generation of brats as a result. According to an article in the Wall Street Journal.
Fodder for another debate.
Indeed.
I want to thank you, James Creedon. I want to thank our panel once again for being with us, and thank you for joining us here in the France 24 debate.